Are you Overland Camper curious but don't know where to start?
Watch this video and find out. This video is going to give you a bit of an overview of what sort of things we looked at and what sort of things we decided before purchasing our Unimog, and how we made the decision of buying a Unimog.
So basically, we'd like to tell you how to start your Overland Camper project in the way how we did it. This is what happened before that fatal, monumental decision of buying a Unimog happened. Before the Unimog was even an idea, before even an Overland Camper was an idea, our background is to do with travel, camping, lots of DIY, very practical people. We are fascinated with practical things. We're more interested in a high-end Leatherman multi-tool than jewelry, for example. We're also quite cheap or quite money conscious. We like value for our money. We don't mind paying for good stuff, but we don't like paying for extravaganza. But we also love being outdoors. We love going mountain biking, and we don't get to do that enough. So we have a natural draw towards things that are practical and outdoorsy and quite hands-on. When we started toying with the idea of what can we do, can we go traveling, would it be possible to live from a van? Would it be possible to travel whilst working? Would it be possible to have money to survive, to eat, to travel, to move around, and all of those things? We started thinking along those tracks, and we were just curious.
Van life and so on is really popular at the moment. If you have a look on YouTube, there's loads of channels like under the hashtag van life scenario. You know, people living full time out of vehicles, be it a Mercedes Sprinter or an Overland Camper or a normal 4x4 with a rooftop tent, and everybody kind of manages in their own different way, really. We've watched, and still do watch, loads of those kind of videos because they're kind of cool, and it's interesting to see people's experiences. And we've also watched a whole load of videos on building these vehicles, and actually not just van builds, but I guess general vehicle project builds and so on, just because that's the kind of thing we spend evenings doing because we're weird.
Yeah, and apart from YouTube, I've spent a lot of time on various forums, Facebook pages. I've looked at Wikipedia and other websites who have got specifications for various vehicles that could be a potential candidate. Then we have had long conversations in the sofa or in the car or wherever about what size vehicles and what weight and all of those things. So from this we started formulating a basic specification. What did we want to do in the camper? Do we want to work, or do we just want to stay in there during the night and spend the rest of the time outside, or long times, short times? Where do we want to go with it? Do we want to just stay around here where it's rarely below 0 and rarely above 30, or do we want to go colder climates, Arctic? Do we want to go into deserts and stuff like that? And then what do we want to carry with us? Do we want to carry motorbikes, mountain bikes, kayaks, or are we happy to just carry a backpack and go hiking in the mountains?
Cool. Well, we ended up coming to the conclusion that if we're going to do this, it needs to be all-encompassing. It needs to cover pretty much every eventuality we can reasonably foresee.
Yeah.
So yeah, if it's going to be a huge project, so if we're going to do it, we're going to do it properly. So the first decision we made was that it's got to be a Unimog.
Yeah.
Because it's a Unimog.
Yeah, we're both mechanical nerds and we love stuff like that. So
it's the only vehicle we really both felt
yeah,
passionate about. Look, we've even got a Lego one in the cupboard there.
yeah, you saw that in episode 1. But yeah, the Unimog just speak to us, and to have a vehicle that we weren't passionate about would be kind of like going to a rubbish house or rubbish flat or rubbish job every day, rather than approaching it with a spring in your step.
Yeah. Didn't quite have the same ring because I drive a Leyland DAF.
Yeah. What's your vehicle? It's a Leyland DAF. Not really. Also, the Unimog fitted well in with that. It's a 7.5 ton.
Yeah, sorry, we should say it's a U1300L Unimog, which is a 7.5 ton.
7,500 kilos vehicle, yeah. So it's bigger than your regular van, which means that we can carry a little bit more stuff, but it's not humongous and can't go through the tiniest of villages and the mountain passes and stuff like that.
Actually, that's a really good point as to why we decided on the 7.5 ton one and not large, because there's very few places that 7.5 ton vehicles aren't allowed to go.
Yeah.
So after we made the decision that we were going to go ahead with this, and it was going to be a Unimog, the next thing we did was, well, it was time to go and actually see some, and is the ideal or the idea something we actually like in reality.
Yeah.
So we went to the Adventure Overland show first, in Stratford upon Avon.
Yeah.
And there we went to speak to Atkinson Voss, and we talked about lots of different options, you know, what they could do for us, what they have, and because they're kind of like the go-to name in this kind of thing. And we picked up one of these, and see, Overland Camper and Overland Camper bodies. And we also had an opportunity to meet somebody who'd done their own conversion, talked about his process and all the research that he had done.
Had a nose around in his camper.
Yep.
So thanks, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. And seeing exactly how he's managed to get everything in their thing. Well, actually, if he's managed to sleep 3,
yeah,
we can definitely manage 2.
Yeah.
So that gave us loads of things to think about. So we also had to look around some other overland campers that were there, and ended up coming to the conclusion that they didn't quite measure up if it wasn't a Unimog.
There were several cool vehicles there, but the only one that fitted our requirements and we were passionate about was the Unimog.
Yeah. And after that, we went to the Caravan and Motorhome show in Birmingham, whereas we weren't expecting to get any inspiration from vehicles, and we didn't. we did start realising like the magnitude of this project. Like what sort of things do we have to start deciding? Have to think about electrical systems, water systems, heating systems, toilets. I never knew there was so much to think about with toilets.
Roof vents,
Roof fans,
taps,
insulation,
lights.
taps, you name it. So yeah, we came back with all of this kind of
Close to you.
paraphernalia. So
Eberspacher,
heaters,
Webasto,
um,
Max Air fans, Tetra,
toilets.
Nice.
windows and doors,
Yeah,
camp bodies.
yeah. Now, when we got home from that, I think that was about the time when we started realizing the magnitude of what we were heading towards. And much more research was needed. And I came across some books. This one is brilliant. This is the first one I bought and read from cover to cover, and I should probably read it again. This is by Ulrich Dolde, and it's called Motorhome Self-Build and Optimization. It is extremely detailed. In some places it's a little bit out of date because Ulrich has done updates and technology moves forward very quickly. But the conclusions and the reasoning is all there. So Ulrich, if you see this, many thanks. Thanks so much. Then after I read that one, I got this one.
You can get Haynes manuals for everything these days.
Yeah. And this one is Build Your Own Overland Camper by Steve Wigglesworth. And this one, compared to Ulrich's book, is a little less in detail. It covers all the bases and it's really easy to read. So if I do this with hindsight, I would probably start with this one, but when it then comes to read the other one, I would probably find that repeating and overly detailed. So I don't know, maybe read the detailed one first and then read this one as a confirmation and an easier one. But they are both good and they are highly recommended. I also got this one. It's the DIY Lithium Batteries by Mika Toll, and this is a good book for trying to understand what modern battery technology is about. There are things that this could cover better. This is more aimed towards building electrical bicycles and stuff like that, and admittedly our requirements are special as usual, but understanding this thing before you start buying expensive batteries is probably a really good idea. So if you are thinking about batteries for this sort of application, I would recommend reading this book.
After the Caravan and Motorhome show, we decided we actually need to go and see more proper expedition camper type vehicles. So we arranged to actually go and see Atkinson Voss and actually have a look at some Unimogs and see what sort of vehicles would be available to us. We were up there for half a day, thereabouts. We got to have a drive around in a Unimog, and I was really surprised just how agile, is that the best way of putting it? Agile and nimble they were on the road, even though it feels quite big compared to the car. They're actually surprisingly narrow and quite agile. So that was really good to have a drive around in one. They gave us loads of really good information. They were very helpful, advised on vehicle upgrades, what we might want to do, what we might not want to do, what we could potentially do ourselves and what they would recommend doing for us. And they had plenty of ideas that we could spend our money on.
Yeah. After the visit to Atkinson Voss, we then started compiling a spreadsheet, and this spreadsheet turned out to be gigantic. I don't know off the top of my head how many tabs it has got and how many tables it has got.
I like spreadsheets, and I can't find my way around this one.
This one is daunting. Mm-hmm. What we actually tried to do is use it as a little bit of a database and a little bit as a spreadsheet. One of the issues we had was that we were finding information about doors and windows and toilets and batteries and all of those things. So I wanted to try to collect all the options and then be able to compare them and then make a choice. Obviously also calculate the price, but we have things in there like trying to calculate the battery size and drawers of various things. Another thing that happened sort of after or during trying to figure out this spreadsheet was the electrical system, and this turned out to be one of the biggest headaches that I've tried to solve. And the basic of this is that it is so huge in the sense of that there are electricity coming into the system from many sources. Alternator, solar panels, mains, and wind turbines if you want, external solar panels, whatever you can imagine, we should be able to harvest the energy. And then the energy goes out in various formats, 12 volt, 24 volt, 240 volt.
Yeah.
What battery voltage do we use? What type and size? We need to figure out what our needs are and then dimension the system to that. And that has to be like the draw, the input, the storage. Somewhere along the lines, we realized that it might be possible to use an induction hob instead of a gas or the diesel cooktop that we had specified. We didn't want to carry gas because it's a second fuel with all its plumbing and things like that. So I'm getting too detailed here, aren't I? Anyway, the short of it is we realized that it was maybe possible to cook with an induction hob rather than the diesel or the gas. Diesel is complicated to install, gas is complicated to install.
Diesel's expensive too.
Yes.
As in diesel cookers are expensive.
Yes. So that obviously bumped the specifications a bit, and you can't see this idea of what we are trying to do with it, and we think we have figured out the major components of the electrical system. This took months.
Even decisions like, do you want an all-in-one box? Do you want to buy individual components? And
how do they work together?
Yeah.
Do you need to charge the car battery from the house battery? What voltages should we got? There were so many things in there that we had to try to figure out.
When we decided that a fully electric system might be possible, we decided we better start actually measuring our electricity consumption. So to do that, we bought one of these electricity consumption meters, and we also bought a portable induction hob from IKEA for the grand sum of £35. And we've been using the two to measure the electricity consumption when cooking various things. I've cooked everything from a huge pot of chili con carne, to pea soup, to a stir fry, bacon and eggs.
Tea, coffee.
Running the microwave, using the sous vide cook stick, charging computers, charging mobile phones, and my hair straighteners. Not.
Anything that we could think of. We charged the drill batteries for the 18-volt drill.
Yeah. And realised that actually we don't actually use that much.
No.
I think we've been using about half a kilowatt a day for cooking. The conclusion's that a fully electric system is definitely possible.
That meant that we now sort of had an idea of what sort of electrical system we could have, and the next step was then to try to figure out what sort of heating and water system we wanted to have. Initially I thought that we would go with airborne system that basically just has a flame and blows hot air around the camper, but the problem with that one is that you can't actually transfer that heat. Once it's airborne, that's it. A waterborne system allows you to transfer the heat, and this has got the benefit of that you can transfer the heat from between the camper to the engine, or from the engine to the camper. And this is very useful, for example, if you are driving in a colder climate, then you can heat the camper up whilst you're driving, and it'll be nice and toasty when you're parked up. Also, it goes vice versa. If you are in a cold climate and you need to start the engine, you can preheat the engine with the heat from the camper. Then we needed to figure out things with the water system that had to do with filtration, tanks, taps, everything like that. So again, a little diagram was created, and I would say that whilst this is nowhere near comprehensive, it gives us a little bit of an idea where we can start.
There's one big problem with the Unimog, and that lies with me and my driver's licence. I only had category B on my licence, which only allows me to drive up to 3.5 tonnes, which meant that I need to take a test for either C1, which is up to 7.5 tonnes, or category C. I decided to go with the C1 because it was a bit cheaper, a bit quicker and a bit easier, and I don't have need for anything bigger at the moment. So in order to do that, the first thing I needed to do was go and have a medical, and that's to prove that I am medically fit to be able to drive a large goods vehicle. I then had to take my hazard awareness and theory test, and after I'd done all that, I was able to do a 3-day intensive driving course in a 4.5 tonne Sprinter van, which I obviously passed. And in about 2 weeks, the DVLA turned around my licence and I had C1 added and it arrived to my doorstep.
With all of these bigger issues solved, at least to a higher level, then we felt that it was time to intensify the search of a proper vehicle a little bit. We had a saved search on eBay, we've been on Facebook groups, we've checked the specialist Unimog websites, we checked Auto Trader, we checked the ex-military vehicle suppliers, and all of those, and vehicles kept popping up, and some of them were in immaculate condition and some of them were just run down workhorses. A Unimog's a workhorse, no problem with that, but I've got a couple of tips if you're going to sell a Unimog on eBay and wherever. Write more than 2 lines and say that it's a good runner.
And clean it.
Clean it. You know, just wipe it off at least. Anyway, We also got into this situation where we thought that for a little bit more we might get a little bit better, and we found a really good one, and we went to see it. We drove it for 10 minutes. We went home, thought about it, ironed out some details, and that's where we decided to buy.
Current status is that we're waiting for a delivery date. Our Unimog is currently undergoing the process of being road registered. Whilst we're waiting, we're preparing for delivery as best as we can by buying what we can and what we know that we'll need.
And that's about our story of how you go from having these mad thoughts thinking, what if? I hope that helps you spend your money, and I hope it decreases your confusion rather than increases it. There are millions of ways of doing this, but this is how we did it.
We hope you'll join us on our Unimog journey. If you want to, please subscribe to our playlist, or even better, subscribe to the channel and join us as we try and figure all this out.
And thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.
But it's a Unimog.
It's a Unimog.